Hey guys, Justin Schenk here, host of the top-ranked podcast, The Growth Now Movement. I currently rank in the top 15% in the world, and I want to help you do that as well. So I've created an online course and a mastermind that you can join for free for 30 days. All you have to do is go to launchfixgrow.com and sign up today. I'll see you there.
Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformation. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Hey, happy Valentine's Day to everybody listening and who will listen to the show in the future. This is Life Transformation Radio, and I am your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 66 countries, such as the United States, Sweden, UK, Amsterdam, in Belgium, and China, and everywhere across Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. So I want to thank you to those who are listening from around the world. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here is where we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing. We highlight that transformational moment that has changed our lives and how we use this to then transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live right here on the Blog Talk Radio Network at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also join our Facebook community, Life Transformation Radio Community. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you're comfortable listening to podcasts, specifically on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, CastBox, or the Google Play Music app. Again, wherever you're comfortable listening to podcasts, I ask and invite you to subscribe and rate and leave us a review so that we know how we're doing. On the show, I have entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, podcasters, authors, amazing people who are impacting the world around them. And my guest today does exactly that. If you have any questions for any of our guests that I bring on the show, this is a live broadcast, so you can call us up at 657-383-1109. Catch us live Tuesday through Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and call us up at 657-383-1109. Without further ado, please help me welcome to the show Alexandra Stockwell. Hey, Alexandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to celebrate Valentine's Day in the United States with everyone listening all over the world and with you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
I am super, super pumped to have you on the show because we met last year at Steve Olsher's event, New Media Summit, happening next week in Tampa. And I was like, you definitely, like as soon as you said transformation, I was like, ding, okay, got it. And then you started talking about some things, relationships and intimacy and some other. I was like, oh, yeah. All right. I know where I'm going to place her. So I am super pumped to have you here to talk about 6 qualities to conscious partnerships and how we can have a more joyous, amazing, deeply satisfying relationship, intimacy, all of that stuff. So I am super excited to do this.
Me too. I think it's what everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but so many people yearn for and don't really know how to create it. So I'm so glad that at the end of this hour, people will know.
Right. Oh, yeah. Education is so fun, especially on these types of topics. Because
yes.
I've had a couple relationship experts on the show, and sometimes we go places I didn't think we were going to go. So it's always fun to see where this topic's going to go. So if you're ready, let's do this.
Okay, sounds good.
So the title of the episode is 6 Qualities to Conscious Partnerships with Alexandra Stockwell. She is Alexandra Stockwell, MD, is a physician turned relationship and intimacy expert. As a wife of 23 years and a mother of 4, she believes the key to passion, fulfillment, intimacy, and success in a couple's relationship isn't compromise. It is being unwilling to compromise. Because when both people feel free to be themselves and know how to love and be loved for exactly who they are, the relationship is juicy, nourishing, and deeply satisfying. For over 20 years, she has shown men and women how to bring pleasure and purpose into all aspects of life, from the daily grind of running a household to successfully growing a business, to creating ecstatic experiences in the bedroom. Alexandra helps build connected and happy families through facilitating healing and transformation for couples. Go to www.alexandrastockwell with 2 L's, alexandrastockwell.com. The Facebook links are right there in the show notes. Go ahead and click on those. Join her Facebook group. And connect with her on Facebook. She is amazing at what she does. So the first question that I have to ask, and I love asking this question because I get so many different responses, is what is your why? Why be a relationship intimacy expert? Why do you do what you do?
You know, Sean, I love that you start there, and I have so many layers of answers, but I'll say one which is actually kind of vulnerable and I don't often start with, and that is that I am really devoted to children and to families and really to the future of our culture, of our society, of life. And there are a lot of different ways to contribute to the needs there, but in my mind, the one that I am just passionate about is by serving children and families, by teaching the parents how to have really juicy, nourishing relationships, great sex, communication that instead of being draining or depleting is just so invigorating and vulnerable and connected. Because when the parents know how to really, really show up with and for themselves and one another, it just naturally ripples out into interactions with everyone else in their lives, especially the family. And so when the parents really are nourished in the relationship, the whole family thrives.
Oh, I absolutely agree to that. One thing that I said that was in your bio is that the unwillingness to compromise.
Yes.
And we're always told in our life, like, got to compromise, got to meet 50-50, got to go halfway, got to, whatever. Compromise is great for marriages. But you're saying don't compromise, but with a twist. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so I definitely think that the most common relationship advice is you have to learn to compromise. Marriage is all about compromise, as you just said. And I just don't think that's true, because one of my really favorite sayings in the whole personal growth world is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yep. 100%.
And with our conscious mind, we can certainly compartmentalize things, but we can't truly compartmentalize with all of ourselves. And so if you're compromising, which means prioritizing someone else's experience over your own, not wanting to rock the boat, putting your own needs aside, well, I'd really love Mexican food, but sure, I'll go have Greek, just in the habit of essentially de-emphasizing your own needs and desires. There's no switch where you can go turn that on when it comes to passion. If you're dialing it down in order to just have things be comfortable, accommodate someone else, then it's super hard to find the passion and the fullness and the vulnerability behind closed doors or in really important communications, because showing up like all the way and really honoring who you are and what's important to you it's not like we become habituated not to do that when we prioritize compromise. And when I say be uncompromising, that does not mean that you get your way all the time. That actually has nothing to do with it. It's more that it's essential that you say all of what you want, and then you can be content with some of it. But if you never actually say all of what you want, if you never actually present all of you, your tears, your smiles, your devotion, your selfishness, if you don't bring all of that, then you have no way of having your needs fully met.
Interesting. So it's not about being right, or it's not about winning the argument where you're uncompromising. It's saying that you're not sacrificing your joy and your happiness unnecessarily. That's how I understand it.
Yes, exactly. And I just want to kind of unpack unnecessarily. Like, let's say, I've seen this where I'm working with a couple, and he wants her to be more engaged, more dynamic, just more present during lovemaking. Mm-hmm. And so I say to her, well, creating safe space, and so she's going to feel safe to open up. And I say, what do you desire? And she says, and often with some shame, but I don't really know. And in that kind of a scenario, it's typically the case that this is a woman who will go to the restaurant her husband prefers and will just time after time go with his motivation. And it's just hard to break that habit. But if, for example, she said, I really want to do things this way, and then ended up doing them the way her husband wanted, she would know exactly what her desires are and have plenty of passion. And then there can be a kind of a give and play, and sometimes you go with what one person wants, sometimes with what the other person wants, but at least it's based on everybody knowing what everybody wants. It's kind of like, I practice medicine, so I have a lot of concepts from there, and it's like informed consent. When you know everything, then you go with the best approach that's going to work for everybody. And from the outside, that might look like compromise, but it's not going to feel like compromise if you brought all of your desires, and this time you do it that way, and next time you do it your way.
Okay, I got you. Yep, fully understand. Because, like I said, somebody might hear that and go, see, I don't have to compromise. I don't have to compromise. You know what I mean? I'm like, easy.
Yeah, and that is really not what it's about. And in fact, another way to say the same thing is it's easy to do what seems to be best for, I'm going to say him and her, and speak in a heteronormative way right now. But let's just say, that either you do what he wants and then she's compromising, or you do what she wants all the time and he's compromising. And the really artful way to grow a delicious relationship is to look at what's best for the union. And so the real place to be uncompromising is in what's best for the union, because if it's best for the union, it's best for the relationship, then it's going to be best for both of the people in the relationship. So I'm okay with some individual compromise so long as no one's compromising on what's best for the relationship, and that is always going to include having both people feel like they can say anything, be fully expressed, be accepted for whatever it is that they yearn for.
Got it. I like that a lot, because it feels like there's a level of respect for the relationship no matter how you slice it. In that regard, how the way that you broke it down, the level of respect inside of that relationship is inherently there. That's the way I understand.
Right. Exactly, because if one person is always holding back and not even always, just, often or sometimes holding back on something that's important, that is being compromising for the relationship, because it means there's some part of that person that she's not bringing to the relationship. She's keeping it outside of the relationship. And in order to have a really fantastic relationship, there is no compromising on how much of yourself you bring. I think the most passionate, juicy, long-term relationships are fueled by both people learning to bring more and more of themselves to the relationship and learning to increase your capacity to receive who your partner is rather than judge them.
Right. Oh, 100%. Yeah. The only thing that I know, about relationships as far as, like knowledge or specialty or whatever is the love language.
Yes.
And that's literally the only. I've never taken a class. I don't know anything else. Well, there's two actually.
Well,
there's
some
a book.
life experience.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as far as like expertise, knowledge, whatever, there's two books that I always recommend to people when they talk about relationships. And I don't know, and I mean, besides the people that are on my podcast, I'll recommend you to you need to talk to Alexandra. She knows what she's doing. She's a relationship and intimacy expert. Definitely do that. But when I'm not referring people, I always tell them there's two books. There's love language. Got it. We understand how to love them rather than love them like we want to be loved. But there's one called His Needs, Her Needs. And it kind of is along the line. I mean, there's so much in that book, but it's kind of along the same lines, a little bit of it, of what you're saying. And what sticks out to me is that level of respect. And when he started talking about, inside the relationship and when you're in your authentic self and these are just things that I hear, you're in your authentic self, you're showing up in your true form, you're loved the way that you show up and not who who they want you to become or what have you. A lot of that is rooted inside of that book, His Needs, Her Needs. Women are one way, men are one way, but the bridge between the two is the value, love, and respect that you have for each other.
Yes, exactly. And actually, there's research which shows that in a conflict, and just to be clear, anything that I'm saying does not pertain when there's an abusive situation or anything like that. I'm talking about, two people who love one another, they want to be together and are trying to figure out how to do it so that it's really nourishing, emotionally intimate, and sensually passionate for, as long as they're alive. And in that kind of a situation, there's very clear research which shows that it's good for the relationship when the woman softens first. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule which every woman should go out and apply all the time. That's not me. But for anyone, I am a strong woman, and I'm not always this way, but I have the capacity to have a very dominating presence. And I certainly, when I want something and I'm in a discussion about it with my husband, I can get very intense. And I have learned to soften first. And honestly, it required a lot of growth for him not to soften first, because that was the easier thing, is just be go with what she wants, because I had more power behind my desire often. But I have learned to soften first. And in that way, I am being uncompromising. I'm being uncompromising in doing what's best for the relationship and in growing myself as a human being. So it could look to the unknowing eye that I'm compromising because I'm giving in first. Not at all. I'm holding myself to a much higher standard. I'm developing parts of myself which would otherwise be dormant forever. And I have learned to soften first. And it feels amazing to basically have more ways of being available to me. And that is also what I mean when I talk about being uncompromised. It's holding myself to a standard of excellence in how I show up in my relationship.
I love it. I love it. I always ask this question, and I've had 4 or 5 different relationship experts on the show, some therapists, like literally certified marriage therapists and all that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And then I've had like relationship coaches or, intimacy experts, like Alana Pratt was on the show, and she's like a sex expert.
I listened to her show with you.
I love her. She is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So I always ask, is there a such thing as an argument-proof relationship?
My response to that is I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't go near it with a 10-foot pole because arguments are really important. And so,
a lot of them say that. A lot of the experts, like, if you're not arguing, there's something wrong. And they don't mean knock out, drag out fights, not screaming at each other, but disagreements. Like disagreements, arguments. Yeah, like how to parent. Like, no, I think it's just because I'll let you answer, but I'll answer after. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so I'm gonna give a little bit of context before I give my answer.
Sure.
But I really see relationships as the context or the vehicle for personal transformation. And so when 2 people get together, they come with all of their achievements and capacities and skills and ability to learn things in life, and they also come with their childhood wounding. And it's only through really becoming intimate with your partner that you end up accessing the wounding from childhood. Whether you're conscious about it or not really doesn't matter, because this is what happens to everybody. And in the intimacy, you get to access things, and it provides the opportunity for healing and for really overcoming things that felt unsatisfying or hurtful in childhood. And even people who adore their parents and feel like they had the best childhood, it's just a natural part of being human to have times when you don't get all the attention or whatever the case may be. People can have really devastating childhoods, and they can have childhoods that look quite mild. And either way, when you get into an intimate relationship, things arise, and it can feel like your partner is neglecting you or not honoring you enough or whatever the case may be. And so arguments or disengagement, like there are variations on fight or flight for what happens when people get triggered. And those triggers are from childhood, but because they get reactivated through and show up in an argument, there's the possibility to actually heal and overcome them. And if you are never arguing with your beloved, you are basically never going to access more healing, more empowerment, more integration, more generosity in your soul.
Generosity.
Yes, because when we have great relationships and we feel seen and appreciated, then we can give from overflow. Another piece of my why is that people who have really great marital relationships are able to be generous in the world, and we need more generosity.
I love that. More generosity. That kind of speaks to the gratitude. It's almost like the other side of gratitude is you're being generous to someone.
Exactly.
Like how are you blessing people? Yeah. I like that a lot.
Well, and it whether it's volunteering for a cause or making a donation or just looking the barista at Starbucks in the eye when you say thank you after you've paid. And it certainly allows more generosity and patience and kind of respect in parenting too.
Yes.
We don't feel generous when we're sleep deprived and resentful. We just don't. But when we're feeling, right?
Oh, God. Yep. Very true. Or when you're hangry.
Any of that. But
you're not feeling generous at all.
No. But when you have a relationship where you can say to your partner, I just need 5 minutes, or sometimes it's half an hour, and I just need to vent. Like, I'll do this sometimes, and sometimes the venting is about my husband. Honestly, more often it's not. And as soon as I've just said it, I don't need him to do anything. Sometimes I'll even say, look, I only need about 30% of your attention. But it feels really different to do it in communication with the person I care about the most. And then after that, I feel like cleared out of the resentment, and he knows how to listen without taking it on or feeling responsible. And then I'm prepared to be generous, and it is totally different to sit down to dinner knowing that I can show up any which way and it's going to work for my husband because that's what we've created together. And it allows me to be much more pleasant and loving with everybody else.
Got it. That's big. I feel like that's like an aha moment for somebody right there. Somebody listening just went, oh, because I kind of did that in my mind. I was like, oh, okay. So I love the perception that you give and the stance that you give too, because you seem really sure. You know what I mean?
I am.
You're like, this is it. Like you're like, look, listeners, folks, Sean, Alexandra, myself, like this has to happen. Like, this is it,
Yeah,
so I love that.
Like, let's bring it to Valentine's Day. I know people might listen
Sure.
afterwards, and everything we're saying applies, 365 days. But if you are going to go out tonight with your sweetheart and you think, well, it's Valentine's Day, so of course we have to be so nice to one another. But really what's on your mind is something, you have resentment, or you have something going on from work, or, whatever it is that you're carrying into the date and you can't shake it loose, then I encourage you to say, hey, can we call a timeout? Like, let's just stop the clock on this date, and I need, whatever you think, take your best guess. I need 5 minutes. And if you're with someone who, like, isn't ready to just hear whatever you're going to unload, because maybe your relationship isn't in a place for that, or your partner isn't a yes to that, because you really have to ask permission first. If they're not a yes, don't do it. Then you can get out a piece of paper and just write it all down. If you are in a relationship and you're with someone who's like willing to experiment, do some research on how this is, then go ahead and say whatever is bugging you, but be really clear that you're not asking your spouse to do anything about it except listen, and at the end, give you a hug or something like that, and set a timer so that you don't keep talking about it for the rest of the evening. Set a timer, as I'm suggesting, 5 minutes. If it's something super major, take 20. Ideally, do it, if you're going out tonight, do it before you leave home. So when you go out the door, you are leaving that behind you, and you have more energy and more fresh delight available to bring to that date. Because if otherwise, you're like filtering how you feel through the resentment.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love it. I love that. One thing you said that kind of triggered something in my mind, and I was trying to listen to the rest. What was it? It was something about feeling safe, telling them
I know what it was.
What you had to say.
That when you aim to have an uncompromising relationship, one of the things that happens is that you can say anything and bring any kind of feeling, thought, insecurity, dream. There is room in your relationship for whatever it is that's living in you.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do when I speak to my wife, I've had to really be cognizant of this, because I used to be like, you didn't do this, and you and you do that, whatever. And it's just, in my resilience training, I teach a class called interpersonal problem solving. And then another one that I teach is called good listening, and active, constructive responding. And one of the things, and this is like one of the great classes that I teach because everybody gets super involved in these classes because we start talking about things that are like, oh, no, you do that. Like, they'll look at the wife and go, uh-huh, that's you. And she goes, no, that's you and your freaking friends, you know. But it's like, one of the things that I've tried to do is say, well, honey, I feel like, and put it back on me instead of putting it all on her. I feel like you didn't talk to me in a loving way just now. Or I feel like this could have gone a little bit different, or I feel like, you know, and so I'm really trying to have respect for the relationship. And one of the things that I want to let her know is that it may not be you. You may not think there's anything wrong with you, but I feel inside something is triggering me right now. I feel like this is not right. This is, you know, somehow holding us back or, you know, whatever. So that's one thing that I've tried to do a lot of and go, oh, honey, I feel like, you know, you could have got something done at the house or something. If I say that we got 5 things to do today, you know, I'm like, babe, I feel like you're going a little bit slower. We need to pick things up, you know. And so, again, just try to make it not all about her being wrong, just telling her how I feel.
Yeah, that's so great, Sean. And, you know, in the 6 qualities of conscious partnership, one of the qualities is take responsibility. And when you're saying, you know, I feel that is a form of taking responsibility for your own experience. And there's actually, like, you can go so deep with that. And what I aim for, I don't always get there, but what I aim for with my husband is to say, I feel furious, and I know it has nothing to do with you. Even though it's in response to something he did or didn't do, the fact that I feel furious has to do with me and, you know, what things mean to me. And like for example, I was, you know, I'll think of my example that's similar to, you know, when you said, like, there's a bunch of things to do around the house. Like, if my husband is going to do the dishes in the evening and he doesn't do the dishes, I could say, I feel upset that you didn't do the dishes. And I certainly have said that. But now what I aim to do is say something like, I feel upset because you didn't do the dishes because it makes me feel like I'm not important to you and I don't feel loved right now. Because invariably, when we have strong feelings, it comes down to one of the 4 primary feelings of anger, fear, sadness, or joy. Although we're not talking about when the feeling is joy. And so, yeah, like, I feel frustrated, but the reason I feel frustrated is often because it gets down to, you know, I feel like I'm not good enough, or I wasn't important to you today, or something that's more primary and universal.
Right. Well, let's go through that. Let's go through the 6 qualities. What are the 6 qualities to conscious partnerships?
Okay, well, the first one is curiosity. So it's so important to cultivate curiosity. I just gave a lecture on Monday, and I was saying to people, you know, you think you know your partner, and you really do know your partner. Of course, you may know your partner better than anybody else knows your partner. But do you know what your partner's most meaningful exchange at work was yesterday? Do you know your partner's first memory of feeling successful? Do you know your partner's all-time best birthday celebration? Do you know when your partner last told a lie or bent the truth a little bit? Like, people are yearning to be seen, and with questions, unusual questions, whatever questions you're used to asking your partner, whatever they're used to telling you, ask other questions and just be curious, and that builds connection. Curiosity leads to connection versus certainty, and knowing leads to conflict or disengagement. So the first quality is be curious. Anything you want to say about that, or should I move to the next?
Next.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay, good. The next one is to be honest. And we were kind of talking about this indirectly earlier and being uncompromising. Because when you refrain from saying what's true for you, for any reason, even if it's all the best motivations, like not to make your partner feel uncomfortable, when you refrain from speaking the truth, it limits how connected you can feel because you're holding back. The third quality, kindness. So it's important to be honest, but to do it with kindness, not to do it in a way that's hurtful. And what's actually much more common as an issue is that people want to be nice. And the thing about being nice is that you do things in a way that is comfortable for other people, versus kindness, you're doing it in a way that's considerate of other people's feelings, but you're also doing it in a way that's considerate of your own experience too.
And being nice is so, what do they call it? I think the word is vain, like vanity, like it's
yes,
right.
Yes,
like
yes. It's like to look good.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm just being nice. Like I'm just, it's I'm looking for a certain word, like insincere, I guess it would be, like insincere,
yes.
like you just feel obligated to be nice, like when you walk by the store, some lady that you don't like goes, hi, and you're like, hey, and keep on walking, like, oh, I hate her, like people they're nice, they're cordial because it's something they have to do, but inside they're going, oh, I can't stand that person, and they do it all the time.
Yes, and the thing is, I think people often think the opposite of nice is mean, and
right.
Nice and mean are actually very similar. I mean, they one is more inconvenient. I'd rather somebody be nice to me than be mean to me. Let's be clear.
Right, 100%.
But they're both not connected. Kindness involves being authentic, being considerate of your experience, while also being authentic about my own. So that's what I mean by kindness as the third quality. Yes.
Love it.
Then the fourth quality for conscious partnership is to choose happiness. There's that saying, you can be right or you can be happy. And the main problem with being right in the context of relationship, there are plenty of places where being right is super important, and not just doing math problems, but I believe in being right and correct and aspiring to that. But in relationship, if you are oriented to being right, then someone else has to be wrong. And It is not good for the relationship for
100%.
every time you're right, someone else has to be wrong. So there are lots of times when you can just choose happiness, choose the thing that feels better, even if it's not what you would choose if you're going to win a debate. Okay.
I literally told my wife this within the last week or two. I was like, honey, your need to be right is pushing me away right now. Oh, whatever. I'm like, no, literally, I want you to hear me right now. Your need to be right, because I don't want to argue about this. I mean, literally, it would be like something stupid like 2 + 2 is 5. Like, no, babe, it's 4. He's like, no. And then, like, I'm all of a sudden a bad guy because I know the right answer. Like, it was literally something to do with, like, I knew I was right, and like, I could show proof all day long. You know what I mean? It was something so concrete. It wasn't like a subjective thing. And I was like, I don't even care no more. Like, I don't need to prove to you because I know. I'm like, your need to be right.
But when that happens, then the best thing is curiosity, because it is really curiosity that creates connection and creativity. And so sometimes someone doesn't want to just let go of, I'm sure she felt she was right? She's not here to represent her position. But
nope, she totally did. She goes, no, I swear. I'm like, she was so adamant about it.
Yeah, and so that's when you're straightforward, you're like, no, look, this is right, and you're pushing me away. Right. You're gonna then the next move, if you don't want to go away, is curiosity. It's like to ask a question, not a question that's going to prove her wrong. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
More of a question like
why do you think this way?
Yeah, or even like, what kind of resolution, how do you want it to feel when we're done with this discussion? Or what's going to happen if I'm wrong, and what's going to happen if you're wrong? I don't know enough about the details, but like to just, when I was in my coach training, one of the tools that we learned was perspectives coaching. And in perspectives coaching, and this really works when there are two people having a disagreement, is to ask, like, let's say they argue a lot in the dining room, to say, well, what would the table say about this? And it just helps you get access to another point of view.
That's awesome. Those people like the truth, her truth, his truth in the middle is somewhere in that spectrum, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Or, or like, what would steering wheel say, if it happens in the car?
Awesome.
But the thing is that when someone is really attached to their viewpoint, like looking at it through the, quote, eyes of an inanimate object can help just create a little more spaciousness and perspective. And so, if someone isn't able to choose happiness and, they're your spouse and you're invested in both of you being able to be happier in that moment, to then bring some curiosity and also some playfulness. Playfulness isn't one of the 6 qualities, but it is definitely essential to navigating everything that comes up, is a little playfulness and flirtation in the face of a woman who is convinced of her rightness. Yes, exactly.
To be curiosity. One thing about curiosity, my wife and I did the Love Dare from the Fireproof movie.
Yes.
With Kirk Cameron. We did Fireproof Your Marriage, and part of the Love Dare is studying your spouse all day long. And I've always keep this in mind. She caught me the other day. We were at a store. She was walking into dressing room or bathroom or whatever it was, and she looked at me. She like spun around and like looked at me real quick, and I was just standing there. And then I looked away. She goes back out. She's like, "Were you checking me out?" I'm like, "Well, I can't check you out." She goes, "No, I'm just asking if you were checking me out." Like, maybe. She goes, "I love that you were checking me out." I was like, well, I mean, I do, but I don't know. I don't notice. I'm like, well, now you did. So she goes, oh, and it was just like I was checking her out, and she felt loved. I was kind of curious, like, just checking her out, like. Because you get kind of curious. You're like, what's up? Like, I don't know.
Well, and we all want to be seen. And actually, something that's really lovely to do with your partner, again, anyone who's going out for Valentine's Day this evening or, any other time you're with the one you love, it's really powerful without even giving compliments, in a warm, loving tone, to just say what you see. Like, for example, you have brown eyes. You have such soft, long fingers. Just
we couldn't
like
do
things that. What did you say?
We couldn't do that. My wife and I would look at each other and go, "You have a booger in your nose."
If you can do that, you can say, "You have such long, lovely lashes."
Well,
try it. I don't mean to get all
make
sappy.
Fun of each other, like that kind of thing.
Well, then if you wanted to play with this, and if you don't, then by all means don't. But if you wanted to, and don't be cheesy. Like, don't do it the way I did it, because you are an amazing, potent, military-driven, resilient person. Your way of saying this is going to be super different than mine.
Right.
I used to be in New York, now I live in California. I talk a little slower, a little breathier. Like, you're not going to do it that way. And your woman loves you the way you are. So, yeah. But there is the same way that she just melted when you were checking her out. There is something about actually verbalizing as a reflection of what you see when you look at her that feels amazing. Maybe you just say one thing. Like, I was coaching a couple. This was a bunch of years ago, and often, not always, but often it's the woman who reaches out to me. But in this case, it was definitely the man, and in fact, the woman wasn't really that interested in changing how things were. But he wanted a lot more from that relationship than he was getting in the way of passion and intimacy and sexuality. And so one of the things that I suggested he do was certainly to make statements of appreciation and compliments, but also literally to just in a loving, open way, just say what he saw, because she didn't realize she was seen. And it's very hard to convince someone. Like, if you get into a discussion with your spouse and you say, I see you, and he or she says, no, you don't, there is nowhere to go from there, because each person has their own experience, and you just can't convince someone you see them, but you can show them in action. And so sounds like your wife feels like you see her, so maybe this doesn't apply to you, but for a lot of people, just saying what you see when you sit across the table at dinner tonight can really bring a little bit of heat.
Amazing. What's the next?
Okay, so the fifth quality, which we talked about, although we could say a little bit more, is to take responsibility. And similar to compromise, people often say that the key to happiness in a relationship is when both people take 50% responsibility. And I don't agree with that. I think what is needed for a truly, truly fantastic relationship is for both people to each take 100% responsibility. So,
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Love it.
And that sounds, I have never been in the military, but that sounds like something that would be in the military. Is there some equivalent there?
Yeah, definitely. So we don't do anything halfway. Like, you got to meet halfway. I'm going all the way.
Yeah.
Because if you fall short, you're still more than half. If you fall short at 90 or 80 or 70, you're still more than half. So you're doing, because you're striving for excellence. And striving for excellence doesn't mean I'm going to meet halfway with my boss or my commander, or I'm going to meet halfway with the enemy. It's I'm going all out. I'm going all the way, and nothing's going to stop me. So the whole, got to meet in the middle, there is no middle. You give 100%, because even if she doesn't give or he doesn't give 100%, and he starts taking or she starts taking from you, you're still more than halfway.
Totally. And without the same kind of drive that is, of course, necessary in the military, but so it doesn't feel that intense. It can be very, very subtle and very nuanced. I have seen many times where a relationship was practically at the point of divorce. Like, they'd met with attorneys and certainly had been talking about it, and one person and one person only drew a line in the sand for themselves and just proceeded to take 100% responsibility to transform that marriage, and it worked. I actually have a good friend. She also is a podcaster, Christy Arnett, and so she's told this story many times over. I forget how long it was. Maybe they'd been married less than 5 years, and she's a super competitive, successful athlete and was very driven in her career, and in any case wasn't bringing a great deal of attention to her marriage at that time, and he was doing other things, and he had an affair. And when this came out, it was totally devastating to her, and it felt like it came from left field because she didn't think he was that kind of person, and like she just felt inadequate as a woman, all of that. But as she started to get more honest with herself, she realized that she hadn't been available. She had pulled back, and she didn't make available, he ended up finding somewhere else. He felt like there was nowhere to go but to divorce. And she learned what it means to take 100% responsibility. And every day for 30 days, she wrote him a love note and expressed appreciation and named the things about him that she enjoyed. And the first one, I mean, she had full rights to the victim card, right? I said that she didn't have her attention, but none of that mattered. That's all hindsight. The point is they were married, they were committed together, and he cheated on her. And so she could have just collapsed, felt all kinds of things. But instead, she found the love she had for him and wrote him a note. Every day he would find a yellow sticky note somewhere. And after the first 6 or 7 days, she got really into it. And it wasn't this Herculean task to find something nice to say about this person she wanted to strangle. And at first, he didn't take it seriously. But eventually, he completely shifted, and they now have an amazing, devoted, passionate marriage. They share about it on her podcast. She blogs about it. They are a go-to devoted power couple. And it really started with her taking 100% responsibility, and then he has as well. And so the effects are synergistic. But I share that whole story because I really believe that there is always hope if at least one person is willing to take 100% responsibility.
I love that. That's amazing. Last one, and then we wrap up.
Okay, great. The last one is seek growth. And I'm distinguishing between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Yep. Love it. Love it. Huge in resilience.
Exactly. Yes. I think it's kind of fun that you said you're not so informed about relationships because I think you're teaching all of the same principles in a different context.
Yeah, I'm starting to see. I'm like, maybe I'm smarter than I give myself credit for because
that's right.
I'm right along with you.
Yes, you are. I mean, we could just flip the context and you do all the talking.
Yeah. So what about the growth and fixed, and how does that work in relationships?
So the main thing is if you have a fixed mindset, that basically correlates with believing that you are who you are, your spouse is who they are, nothing's ever going to change. It's going to be like this. If you put up with it, it's going to be like this for another 10, 20, 40 years. In contrast, when you have a growth mindset, you believe that growth and transformation are always possible. Every story that I've told while we've been talking is an example of someone who embodies a growth mindset, and it means that it may look like there's no way forward and you just need to be curious, look a little further. And when I talk about relationship as a vehicle for personal transformation, that is all about having a growth mindset, being committed to learning, being more of who you are, facing what's hard and challenging, be more vulnerable. And boy, the return on doing that in a relationship is really, really big.
I can definitely see that. I can definitely see the similarities. Awesome. So before we close, here's what I want to do. I want to do a shameless plug. You can plug friends, quotes, websites, Facebook, whatever it is that you want the audience to know and to do. Plug it right here. Shameless plug moment. Go.
All right. Well, what I want to do is invite everyone to my Facebook group. The link with lots of numbers in the address is in the show notes. But if you look it up on Facebook, it's Conscious Partnerships. And I want to invite everyone to come play, come ask questions, come share your experiences, come lurk and just check out what everyone else is doing. I want to really open the playground. There's nothing that's too small, nothing that's too big. So the actual proper name of the group is Conscious Partnership, a community to strengthen love and connection. And anyone who's listening, I'd love to engage with you there.
Awesome. So as we close, give us one nugget of knowledge that will motivate, transcend, and inspire someone to take action today.
No matter what you're thinking or believing or what you feel needs to happen, if you are anything other than calm and clear-headed, stop and figure out how you feel, which is easier to say than to do. And when I say how you feel, I don't mean I feel I have to get this done. I mean stop and really, do you feel angry? Do you feel sad? Because as soon as you identify that feeling, it doesn't have as strong a grip on you. And then you can go forward with whatever's next.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. Alexandra, you are absolutely amazing. What a great topic to have on this Valentine's Day 2019. Amazing things happening in your life, and you're doing amazing things in other people's lives as well. So I want to thank you for your time and your energy and what you've shared with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. I hope you and your wife have a beautiful Valentine's Day, and may everybody have just really lovely, delicious, sexy times with the one you love.
Well, so far I'm winning. So I got my 12-year-old and my 4-year-old daughter a pink rose with some baby's breath and, little green stuff, just a single rose, And then my wife, everybody gets roses on Valentine's Day. Like everybody does. So what I did was I got her 12 lilies because that's her favorite flower.
And
the lilies
so
are
classy.
pink and white and white and purple, and there's all kinds of purple enhancement flowers that are all like the little itty bitty ones, They're like, I don't know, they're weird looking, but they're all in there with some greens, whatever. It's very full, and I said, I want something different. That's what I want. I want something different. So that's what we did. I got her lilies that were all kinds of different colors, and she absolutely was like, oh my God. So I think I'm winning today.
You are, and Sean,
you
are winning with the choice you made, and you are winning because in that bouquet, with lilies being her favorite flower, you are saying through and through, babe, I see who you are, and I see what's important to you.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being an amazing guest, and this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean.
Life Transformation Radio listeners, if this episode resonated with you, please share this and leave a rating and review. Connect with Alexandra Stockwell. She is absolutely amazing as a relationship and intimacy expert. As I close, I always say, live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. I call this living your brand. So until next episode, live a great life.